It's AP on the spot. You already know I appreciate y'all for real. Yo, subscribe to the channel. Much love, much respect due. I'm just gonna get to it. Who had the better album? I mean, listen, we've been comparing and contrasting for years between these members of the group. And I know it's not a popular thing to do, but hey, it's AP and this is my platform and I don't care. Who do I think had the better album between my man Conway the Machine and God Don't Make Mistakes and my guy, my man Benny the Butcher, Tana Talk 4? We're gonna discuss it. I'm gonna break it down. Let's talk about it. It's AP Spot. Let's go. It's AP on the spot. Benny and Conway have been consistently in my top 10 lyricists in hip hop over the last 5 years. But I personally think that there was a drastic difference between both albums. And actually, Conway talks about people like me on the track on Benny's album, Tyson versus Ali. People who want to compare and contrast and want to try to cause a rift between the crew. I'm not here to do that. I am here to compare and contrast because I like doing that. So I'm just going to state my truths to where, I've reviewed Benny's album, did an album review. You can check that out on my channel. I didn't review Conway's album, but I do feel in full transparency that Benny, Tana Talk 4 was the better album between God Don't Make Mistakes and Tana Talk 4. I do feel that Benny had the more superior album. One of my things that kind of just stuck out to me, I'm just going to discuss a couple quick things that just stood out to me. Just not a full album review, definitely not doing that. But Conway's album sounded I'm not going to say it sounded dated, even though Conway did reveal in a bunch of interviews that this album was done and in the tuck and in the chamber for like a couple years when he first signed with Shady. So that would lead you to believe that this album had a lot of older material on it. And I'm not going to say the album sounded old, but it just had an overtone of just the beat selection was just, to me personally, not good. I didn't like the beats on Conway's album whatsoever. Conway is going to always hit you in the head lyrically. I mean, Conway is in the top 5 lyricists right now in hip hop. So Conway will always deliver lyrically. But the beats on this album that were produced by, Derringer and Beat Butcher and Alchemist, they just didn't do it for me. They were just like really melancholy, just really slow. It just reminded me of just, it was nothing on this album, truth be told, that separated it from any of the mixtapes that Conway and mix joints that Conway was coming out with years ago. So that's what kind of caught me off guard. I definitely thought that this was going to be an album that was more, bigger sounding, if that makes any sense. Sort of like the Machina album, La Machina album. I know I'm pronouncing that and butchering that wrong probably, but you already get the gist of what I'm saying. I thought it was going to sound more like that, had a more polished sound to it. And even From King to a God. Now, From King to a God, I thought that was a 5 mic album. I gave it a hip hop classic. I thought that was one of the best albums to drop 2 years ago when it came out. And La Machina, I thought that was a very good produced album as well, even though it wasn't as good as From King to a God. La Machina was a very good album. But this one right here just didn't do it for me production wise. I think that Conway could have benefited from maybe still keeping to the Griselda sound. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying, Con, get away from your sound. That's the foundation right there. You can't do that. We wouldn't want you to do that as fans and just people in hip hop and the culture. But I think the benefit of the La Machina album was that Conway worked with different producers and it had more of a different sound to it. And I think Conway has reached that stage in his career to where he really needs to switch the producers he worked with, because Derringer is a great producer. Alchemist is one of the best producers of all time. And, Beat Butcher, he has his moments here and there, but I just feel like, Conway needs to rhyme over some more up-tempo joints. I mean, the album just sounds like one continuous song, throughout the whole thing. And I know I'm complaining a lot about the production, but the beats is everything. You can have 5 mic lyricism, but if your beats ain't right, then that's just not going to be a good reflection on how good the album is. Just ask Cannabis on his first album. That was one of Cannabis's main problem, almost 25 years ago. So the beats I thought was a problem. Some of the features on the album, really just didn't do it for me. The Beanie Siegel feature was very distorted, hard to hear. Beanie Siegel sounds, I love Beans. I love classic Beans. Beans is one of my favorite MCs of all time, but Beans just sounds horrible now. Let's just call it for what it is. Some of the features I could have did without, like the T.I. feature, the Jill Scott, she had one of the finer moments, one of the iller and more doper moments on the album when she just came out of nowhere and just, instead of doing some singing, she did some lyricism, which I love that. And so, yeah, that was like some of the things. And just, some of the subject matter that I noticed that Conway was discussing was original, like the song where he talked about being stressed, the song called Stressed. But then a lot of the subject material, he was it kind of gets redundant. He was talking about, the unfortunate incident, like, we all heard the story of him getting shot and things of that nature. He kind of like goes into that territory where he's repeating himself a lot and it's becoming repetitive. Now on Tana Talk, let's talk about Tana Talk 4. I thought Benny's album was a very good album. I thought the feature that he had with J. Cole was very dope. And the features really lyrically really was pretty much stood out very much so. From 38 Special, hit us with a gem. I thought J. Cole hit us with fire mic lyricism. I could have did without the Stove God Cooks and the Boldy James. But Benny overall sound was basically, even though Alchemist and Derringer, especially Alchemist, did the bulk of the production on this album, I thought Alchemist really hit Benny in the head with better production, actually, than what he did on Conway's album. And so did Derringer. This is definitely, you could tell, has that Tana Talk sound to it. You can literally play Tana Talk 3 and this one, Tana Talk 4 back to back, and it still has that sound to it. I thought Benny's lyricism was on point. And overall, I just thought that, Benny had the better produced and better sounding album. Was Benny's lyricism better than Conway's? You can compare and contrast their lyrics all day. I'm not going to really get into that because I think that they're both two very high elite MCs, two of my favorite MCs in the game. But I do feel like Benny had the overall better album. The flow of the album was a lot better. The subject matter that Benny was talking about, Benny took us, through different levels. He talked about, when he was growing up, with his father and hustling and selling drugs, getting kicked out of school. So some of the same subject matter is there, the struggle, still that struggle rap, that struggle talk, letting us in on their lives. Conway did the same thing. And one of the ironic things that I'm just now realizing is that God Don't Make Mistakes and Tana Talk 4, each album has 12 songs on it. So you could actually do a verses, because they both have 12 songs, and break down each individual 12 songs and put them up against each other. Because if we comparing Locked and Loaded, number one, off of God Don't Make Mistakes, the Conway joint and Beanie Siegel, we comparing that to the song that Benny has with J. Cole off of his album, obviously Benny has the better track. I do think that's a more superior track. And if we went track by track by track, I do think that Benny has the better album track by track. Conway might have a few bigger features like Rick Ross and Lil Wayne on the album, but those two features really didn't do it for me. Rick Ross, we all know by now, Rick Ross is going to talk his same talk that he's been talking for the last 5 or 6, 7 years. Rick Ross, ain't been giving us nothing new over the last couple of years. So why would he start doing it now? And Lil Wayne, I thought this Lil Wayne cameo was cool. Do I think it was better than the Lil Wayne verse that he had on AZ's album, Do or Die 2? No, not by a long shot. I thought that cameo that Lil Wayne did on AZ's album was absolutely crazy, immaculate. So yeah, let's see, if you do a verses of all 12 songs off of Tana Talk 4 and God Don't Make Mistakes, I think that Benny does overall have the better album. I really want to know what y'all got to think about this. Who do y'all think had the better album? So, hit me up in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think, and I definitely appreciate it. Thank y'all for watching. This is AP. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.